thank you guys for joining. So I know there's quite a few people joining live from as far as India and Hong Kong and Bathurst and all over Australia, but possibly coming in from other countries as well where it's really bizarre times. So thank you for those who are joining us either live or watching the replay. So for those of you who've been around for a long time, and I know Jude has joined me on webinars from the UK many, many years ago. And I always feel it's so important at this time of year that we just take a moment to take stock, to reflect. And often I do this myself over the early January. We take time out, but I actually started a bit earlier this year. And there are so many different ways to review our year. But first of all, why is this important? And welcome to Ken. We're just on mute at the moment as I get started. And we've got a chat box on the side. So I find that this is really important because, life is tough and we have some really challenging years. And, just give us a wave or a little comment in the chat box there if you would agree that this year has had some pretty significant challenges, whether personally or, in the wider world. And so we can get to the end of the year feeling quite exhausted and just go, oh, thank God that year's over, and just shove it behind us. However, if we pause and we, hello, welcome Karen. We're just on mute at the moment while I just share a few thoughts. So it's so important that we pause and take stock and go, what was the gold in this year? And Linda and I have had these conversations for years, like sometimes you're in the midst of a really, really dark time and it's just overwhelming. And we say, okay, there's got to be some gold in here. Often we don't see it until later and we look back and we go, that was really tough, but what's come out of it since? How have I grown in maturity and resilience? What did I do? What was a new step that I took that I wouldn't have if life was comfortable? So you might have had all kinds of discomfort this year. And so let's have a look at it from another angle and see what are the possibilities that we can take from it? What's the learning that we can take from it? So one of the ways that I do this is to go through my calendar and go through my phone. If you just skim through your phone and look at your photos. So who takes photos? Just different places where you go. Maybe sometimes it's just at a cafe, could be anywhere. But you just scroll through and, generally there's dates on it if you have a close look. And then you go, wow, that was really fun. That was really challenging. That was insightful. What do those things mean to you? So I'm just going to show you something that I started this year. And initially I drew a line across the page, thinking that was January to the end of the year, but I had to start another one down here because this is just January to May. Very, very full when I started making notes of places that I went, people that I connected with, and, some of those significant moments. Yeah, so the photos are a really good way to do it. And as you review, and maybe it's also, a paper diary that you have. As I was sorting out my office a bit this afternoon, I came across someone's book that she interviewed me for, A Surge of Possibilities. And I thought this came in the mail just before I went away, so I still haven't done a little video congratulating Michelle. But so there's, my words printed in there. That was, an unexpected thing this year. I write for Rob Salisbury, who does a beautiful book. And the next one will be coming out in January, I believe. So I'll send that out too. And as I start to look at what are the things that I've done, it can be really important to notice some of the things maybe that you've started, maybe there's things that you've finished and therefore you've forgotten about. So I want to tell you a story about 10 years ago. It would be 10 years ago this month. I sat with a client who we'd been working on, I'd been supporting her to work on her business goals. And she was a very young entrepreneur and she wanted to reach a specific financial target in her business. And as we sat in her session 12 celebration session, that particular goal around income was just a little bit short of the mark. And, so she felt quite discouraged and And I met her discouragement in an unusual way. I haven't really said this to a client before or since, but I just went, I know, like I didn't feel like I got much done this year. You know, I didn't really meet any financial targets, you know, because I was so invested in the book. So I was writing this book, which she knew there was a lot of work that went into it. And so when I started just kind of saying the same thing as her, like, yeah, I haven't really accomplished much this year, she just looked shocked. She was like, oh! And I thought it's really funny when we talk to ourselves, it's not the same way that we would talk to a best friend. And so she was about to step into telling me how amazing it was that I did this book. And then she realized that I was just kind of teasing her to look at this from a different perspective. And she said, oh, wow, well, I have made, like I've more than doubled my income. She started realizing all of the things that she'd accomplished in that time. And sometimes we get so fixed on a certain thing that we want to achieve, that we want to pull off, and, you know, we don't quite get there. But what have we learned along the way? And what are the other adventures that we stepped into along the way that maybe, we just didn't see coming? And so there's books that I've been featured in that I didn't see coming at the beginning of the year. There's events that I'm involved in next year that I didn't see coming. And so all of these things can really help. So I'm going to share with you a little acronym. And I sent this to Alison. I want to do a little shout out for Alison, who is in California right now. It's midnight. It's past midnight over there. So she asked me for the recording. But Alison's one of the brave leaders that I worked with for the first 6 months of this year. And she was ready for a change and really changed her life. And so she's in California now. She's living there. And, you know, Christmas would be an interesting time because it's always a hot Christmas in Queensland where she's from, and now she's in a cold one. It's just a complete change. And so I want to encourage you, whether you are living in an extreme change right now or whether you've just, you know, ticked along, it's been an average kind of year, maybe you haven't made any like huge leaps forward. I want you to be careful not to compare yourself to anybody else, because that is such a trap. You know, we look at somebody else's travel or their new book out or their festival. Karen Lee created an amazing festival this year that I was very privileged to be part of. And we can look at those things and go, I haven't really done anything. But, you know, as today I was reviewing some of the moments of 2019, and I don't think this is even one that I journaled about, but I remembered helping an old man across the street. And Lyndon might remember this because he stopped traffic for me because it was a very, very busy part of town and a big highway. And
I remember.
Yeah, it was a special moment, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. I wondered how he was going to get back though.
Yeah, hopefully he went another way. But we need to remember the little things. And so as I started thinking about what are some of the themes from this year, and I know that as you take away this gold acronym that I'm going to give you in a minute, you will start reviewing and seeing some themes emerge. So one of the themes that I noticed emerging as I've looked at some of my old videos and just conversations with people is this phrase that I've been using: you make a bigger difference than you know. And I think it's so important to remember that, because the little acts of kindness make such a significant difference for some people. And another theme that has arisen, and it's probably because of those little moments, I've noticed a theme of people saying things like, it restored my faith in humanity. And when they've said that, they've been telling a story of a small act of kindness or just a small moment of human interaction. So recently I posted about that on LinkedIn because it was this theme. I kept hearing people telling their stories about the kindness of a stranger and then saying, it restored my faith in humanity. And I thought, wow, just a little thing. But it also showed me how much we need our faith restored. I think people are feeling quite challenged at the moment. And so to have those beautiful moments, it really makes a bigger difference than you know. So then shortly after publishing that on LinkedIn, I was in the Qantas Lounge in Singapore about to head home in October. And these children connected because they were playing the same game as each other. So they were strangers, they connected across the lounge and ended up sitting together. Their mums ended up talking and another stranger sat there and joined the conversation. And as I heard one of the girls they're playing their game, but they were talking to each other. And one of them said, I want to write a book. And I went, wow, that's really cool. What would be the impact if I was 8 and about there, and I met an author who told me I could write a book. People write books. All kinds of people write books. Even me, who didn't even finish high school, has published 4 books of my own and countless others, collaborative editions, and my clients' books that I've supported with. So what if I go and talk to this little girl and her mum? And the mum told me about how they connected. And she said, it restored my faith in humanity. And I went, that's amazing. It's amazing that something so small, just this little connection that the kids enjoyed, restored her faith in humanity. So I just want to remind all of you, for any little act of kindness that you've done this year, even the ones that you don't remember, it lifted somebody and it really mattered. So I'm just going to pause, see if anyone's got any questions.
It's what you've said, I've taken a lot of interest in so far.
Yes.
And I've actually noted that you make a big difference, and damn, I'm going to take that and I'm going to use that in my day-to-day life.
Cool.
Excuse me, just help others out as well. Like 2019 for me has been a really good year.
Cool.
I completed my Cert 2 in animal studies, the training side.
Yep.
About a fortnight ago. So.
Congratulations.
So yeah, all in all, 2019's been really, really good. And
that's beautiful. 2020
is going to get even better.
That's cool.
All right, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Joe.
No worries.
I was thinking of you this morning, and so we'll talk more later. Yes.
Yeah, we'll do.
Some ideas to share. So that's awesome. So is everyone ready for the gold? So this is just a simple way to help you. So if you like, so that's one way I've just listed out all the things that have happened this year and still haven't finished. And I also wrote at the top, what makes this important? So it's really about the questions that we ask ourselves. And some of you here have been through the Connecting with Confidence program with me. Many of you are familiar with the book, Do Talk to Strangers, or even the little travel toolkit, which I launched in Singapore last year. And so we have the asking model, and the K in asking is keep going with quality questions. And we had so much fun in Dubbo recently where Robin and Lyndon were involved, and we plastered the wall with so many post-it notes. I have my little post-it note stash here as well, because I want to encourage you to grab post-it notes if you like. Make this a creative process and put things up on the wall. Ask yourself the questions like, they're just going to come out through the quotes, so write them down. But one of them is, what makes this important? So G for gold is gratitude. So when I consider 2019, what am I grateful for? And you might think of, some of those little moments of interaction. You might think of, a new air conditioner, which would be so wonderful for anyone in these hot places. You might think of people that you're grateful for, or a new recipe that you discovered. So grateful. What are you grateful for? And so the O in gold is others. So who was part of your 2019? And it might be people who have always been part of your life, and you might think about, interactions that you had with them, places that you went with them, but you might think about others who have just stepped into your world in 2019. Maybe an author or someone who's been doing, great posts on LinkedIn or Facebook. You might be learning from somebody. There might be others that you've met on a plane, a train. As you know, I'm meeting people everywhere. And so when I think of others, I think of, so a moment in, thank you, Lyndon, for putting that in London. So I first met Jude, who's here on the call. I met Jude in Dubbo at a friend's wedding. And so that's New South Wales, just west of Sydney. And Jude has joined coaching programs that I've run online over the years, probably around 2012, I think. And then this year, when I was in London just for a few days, we met up. Jude came to visit at a friend's place, and that was so exciting. I'm just going to unmute Jude because she might be busting to say something since I'm talking about her. But Jude is one of the others that was part of my year. And in fact, I stayed with a friend who I had connected with only 3 weeks before. So I was staying with a new friend who's one of the beautiful others in my world. And then she said, well, invite you to come over. So she did.
Yes, it was amazing. And that dinner was so special. And we all became friends because of that dinner. So it was brilliant.
It was really lovely. So there ended up being Sarah Jackson, one of my Facebook friends, who I'd never met, and then she came, and she lived just down the river, which was just amazing. So the River Thames was quite a connector for us also.
And I think the more you travel, the more closer people get. It's so strange.
Yeah, yes. It's amazing. And Sushil, I think, is connecting with my friend Tim Hammonds from Singapore, who's just flown into Mumbai this afternoon. So I hooked them up on Facebook, which is just incredible. Sushil, I did see earlier you published a book this year. $1 Million Second, published by CNBC, was released on 23rd of August, which is fantastic. Also, I see that you are grateful for the environment, where I made some wonderful friends like Kerry. And so, you're on the threshold of making more great friends. And Lyndon has had a very different year. And so while we're on others, I might just ask if I can get him in for a moment. So thank you, Jude.
Hello.
I'm going to just try and keep this concise, and then we can have lots of questions and chat afterwards. But Lyndon, you met a lot of others.
I met a lot of others, yes.
From all over the world.
Yep.
What can I ask you, what impact did it have to meet people from so many different cultures?
To meet so many people from a vast array of cultures, that really I can't take everything for granted.
Wow.
And that there's so many differing outlooks on life out there, and that mine's not really the only correct way to do that.
Good insight.
Although I struggle with that. Everybody should see things the way I see them, I'm sure.
For those of you not in Australia, that's called tongue-in-cheek. I'm not sure how. We have to be aware. You actually noticed this, didn't you, Lyndon, that some of your Australian humour or some of your Australian expressions didn't land with people. They didn't quite know what you meant.
Yes. Yeah, the first 2 weeks, for those of you who didn't know, I walked the Camino in Spain, which is 832 kilometres across the top of Spain. And the first 2 weeks, people kept saying, "What did you say? What did you say?" And I realised that I had to change the way I spoke, because I used so many colloquialisms in my language.
Yes.
And yeah, things that, Australians say things that mean the opposite of what they've said. And that was confusing.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, this is a really nice segue into the next part of GOLD. Would you like to know what that is? So this is L for learning. So what have you learned this year? So Lyndon's obviously learned more about communicating cross-culturally. So learning, I think there are so many things that we can look at. We can look at our list of dates and places or people and just go, what did I learn here? What did I learn, maybe practically, learning to use Zoom, for example, learning different ways of using LinkedIn. That's something that I've been learning more about, just learning by practice, and learning from people. What are the different worldviews that we've been exposed to? I found it really interesting in England, just to go back to there for a moment, being with different taxi drivers and meeting people in different places and hearing their thoughts on what was going on in their government. And for those of you who know me well, I don't like to get into political conversations, and can we just keep it, to 5 minutes? But it was just I found it really interesting, because what we see on the news of any country is literally just what we see on the news. It's what the media is sharing with us. And there is so much more. And so to be able to connect with people and hear their stories is really quite powerful. And, we don't have to travel to do that. We can travel just down the road to, the nearby Indian takeaway or the Chinese restaurant. There's a little shop just down the road here. The lady there from Hong Kong is always like so happy to see us, and she always laughs because I go in there with a person of a different culture so many times. She says, "You're friends, all different colors." I'm like, yeah, this is my brother. And she's like, no. She can see that it's not quite like that. So it's beautiful. Ken, that's beautiful. Learning that we're all different and communicate very differently. Yes. And one thing that I love about traveling is also seeing how we are the same, because I think the media can really show us how we're different. And yes, we do need to communicate differently. But also, like when I'm speaking to an audience of any culture, I think these people, they have people at home that they love. They have, questions and concerns, and they really want to do well in the world, for themselves and their families. And so it's really interesting to be holding that view of like, wow, we're so different, and yet we're so the same. We're so alike in our humanity. So that's been like a beautiful learning for me. So pop in here in the comments with any other things that you've learned this year. Yeah, Robin, I have learned why I am like I am and why I do things certain ways. And learning to use a new device. Thank you, Joe. And I'm going back up and finding grateful. So so learning, I think we can unpack that for weeks. And I think that can be really useful in looking at what learning do I need to develop more of? What do I need to spend more time learning? Maybe you've read a book and just gone, wow, I need to learn more from this author. So Brené Brown is one of those. I've been learning from her from her books and videos over the years, and I know that we're still scratching the surface, because she's really sharing about human connection, and that is such an ongoing important conversation. So that's another example. So D is for develop. Like, how did I develop this year? How did I grow and mature? So some situations that you find yourself in that may have been challenging, you might go, yeah, I developed resilience through that situation. Maybe you can see that you were more calm, or you managed things with more focus or presence, or you stuck it out when something was really challenging. So what were the things that you really grew in? How did you develop? So just to do a quick overview. So G is for grateful. What am I grateful for? And you'll notice that some of these things interact. You can be grateful for the learning. You can be grateful for the others in your life, and grateful for the development opportunities and the way in which you grew. And, just last week I was in Phuket. Sorry, I have to think about what country, with my friend Andrea Edwards, and she has a 50th birthday coming up, and she's been doing 50 wisdoms. And so we did a video together. I think it was her day 30. And she said that that's something that she's developing, is being comfortable on camera. And I think a lot of people are doing that too, and something that Robin and I have talked about also. Communicating is different from influencing. Yes. And how are we going to influence people? Yeah, I got a message just a couple of days ago from somebody who recently bought my book, and she read maybe half of it, and then she had to go out to a couple of events that day, and she said she just felt that she connected more confidently, and I can't think of the words. It's in the Connect with Confidence group. It's we pay attention to something and then we become more comfortable with it. So I'm going to, who would like to share something? I know that Robin will be ready to say something, so I'm going to jump over to Robin. But anyone else, please just put your hand up or make a comment, and I'll bring you out for comments or questions. So Robin, what are you noticing in the gold process?
What am I noticing in the gold process? I see it's like, it's looking at it, it's like one precedes the other.
Yeah.
So we start with gratitude. So that's our starting point.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a switching in how we see that's a switching in how we see things.
Yeah.
Taking our focus off ourselves.
Yeah, nice.
That then takes us to looking to others, and who are the people who are around us. How are they impacting our lives?
Yeah.
That may be a positive impact, or it may not be a not so positive impact.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a rising, increased awareness of the people around us and not being so self-centered, which can be, we can fall into that trap fairly easily to do that.
Yeah.
And then like the learning, like we learn about I think in looking at others, we learn about ourselves.
Yes.
What we see in others helps us to learn more about ourselves.
Yeah.
As we interact with others, if we're open to it, we have the ability and the capacity to learn about ourselves.
Yeah.
And see where there's opportunity for us to then develop in in different ways.
Yeah. Very nice.
So I see that's an ongoing process.
Yes.
That's not something that we just do at the end of the year or the beginning of the year.
Yes.
It needs to be an ongoing process.
Yes.
And that can happen over and over and over and over and over
and
over every year.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It really is. I was thinking as you're sharing that, it's not just for one webinar. Like, you guys are taking the time out, and I really appreciate that you're taking time out. And you really, well, for some of you, you're stepping into the unknown. Some of you really don't know me very well at all, and you've just jumped on this call. But it's a process that we're just starting tonight. And you can really have some fun with it. There's so many different ways that I've kind of mapped out my year. And it's like exploring again. It's like, what have I not seen in this year? And then it's like we're well informed to take things into next year. So Karen's saying gratitude reminds me to be grateful for what I have. It's not a coincidence or luck. It helps me to ground myself. Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, in the asking model, we have G for gratitude, because that is it's a powerful connector. And we talk about connecting with yourself and others, and that's how I help people, is through one-on-one conversations and really helping people to connect with themselves and their own journey and connecting with others. And so gratitude, and I haven't actually put it like this before, but just as we're discussing this now, I see that gratitude helps us to connect with ourselves, and it helps us to connect with others. When we start thinking about what are we grateful for, we shift away from all of the circumstances and the stress and everything that's going on.
And what we don't have.
And yeah, exactly. But it brings us back to sort of our inner world, where we really need to be paying attention. And I'm not sure where our background noise is, but I'll just mute everyone for a moment. So what do you want to be celebrating this year? So as you look over your gold process, and Sushil has a question there. What is it that you look at? And you're only getting started now with your gold process, and you'll add more to it over the next few weeks. But what are you wanting to celebrate? And Sushil?
Okay. I wanted to say 2 or 3 quick things.
Sure.
One is that this year has been great for me, that either online or offline, I met many international people, particularly in the Asian Professional Speakers Convention at Singapore.
Yes.
And I made some of my best friends of my life in the span of those 2 days.
Yes.
So what I've learned, particularly when you're talking about communication, I found, and I learned this from Sam Cawthon, he's also from Australia.
Yes.
I learned that communication is when you just convey very accurately what you mean to another person.
Yes.
But beyond is when whatever I communicate to you also influences you to take action. So it
Yes.
is more important to look at communication from being an influencer more
Yes.
than just being a communicator.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
second thing that I found is that though I saw comment people and we communicate differently, but I found that in that different communication, in our different cultures, there are still a lot of common things that God gave us. Whether it is kindness, whether it is being
Yes.
polite, it's being
Yes.
good to people. That doesn't have any uh, bonding or sorry any boundary of any religion or region or community or caste or creed.
Yes.
And somewhere you learn that human beings are beyond these boundaries.
Yes.
And that is something which I really love. And I've just popped into this session without, I mean, I was going to go somewhere when I just got onto WhatsApp with you and I just came in. And I had a very nice conversation, which kept me, I just thought I'd watch for 5 minutes and then go. But you haven't let me go because you kept... So very nice meeting you on. And I think it's a wonderful experience sharing some of these thoughts, which are, you know, when you talked of gratitude, like it's a simple thing. But when it comes, when you start thinking about it, what did I do this year where I was where gratitude mattered?
Yes.
You find that these little things also, we just let them go. We don't pause and ponder over them. So thank you for all this.
Yeah, you are welcome. I find this time of year people are not pausing and pondering, where, you know, the shops, everywhere you go, it's just kind of frantic. And I'm seeing on LinkedIn, everybody's putting out all the posts about, like, you know, make 2020 amazing. And people are messaging and saying, you've got to, you know, follow my business program. And it's like, wow, let's just take some time to take stock. And there are so many extraordinary people in my world. I'm looking forward to meeting more next year too. But I really want to do life well in each moment. And when you're talking then, Sushil, about influence, and it brought me back to this theme that I've been carrying all year, which is like, you make a bigger difference than you know. And people don't realize how much they're influencing. I think you can decide, you know, I'm going to go and influence people today, but you're influencing whether you need to or not. You walk into a room with a smile, with an openness. I was talking to Ethan about this the other day, actually. He said, you can see some people just walk into the room with their phone in their hand, looking down at it. And I went, yeah, what if people actually sent their messages, put their phone in their pocket or their bag, and then walked into the room? Because then people in the room can see, here's somebody who's like ready for a conversation, ready to connect. So, this is beautiful from Karen. She said, a gift of kindness has no boundaries. I agree, which reminds me of my business travel to New Delhi. That's really lovely. And Karen, I haven't met face-to-face yet, but we've connected on social media. So sometimes, just to go back to reviewing, there's, you know, the phone, looking through photos, but also just going back through recent connections on Facebook or LinkedIn. And that can be really useful. And also you can go, oh, I really want to connect with that person more. So there's so many things. But I guess the important thing is just to remember that you're just looking for the gold, and you're not rushing or being frantic, and not letting the frantic nature of the world around us to push us along, but to purposefully step back. And I've been having some really profound conversations recently about stepping into the unknown, and I was inspired to go and see Frozen 2, which probably I might have gone to see at Christmas time with nieces and nephews. But that was brought to my awareness. And so I went to see that, and first of all had downloaded the song Into the Unknown. And I thought it's actually a common theme for many people in my world to be stepping into the unknown. And this is what Lyndon's done by going on the Camino. And while he was walking across Spain, I was in Europe doing the Do Talk to Strangers Europe tour, which I wasn't sure exactly what that would look like. I didn't know that I'd meet up with Jude, which was lovely. And I didn't know that I would meet refugees in London and in Germany. I didn't even know I'd go to Germany, but back to the Asia Professional Speakers Connection. I met Frank from Germany, and at the Singapore convention in May, and he said, are you coming to Germany? Come to Germany, I will host you. But by the time I got to Ireland to meet up with another friend from Asia Professional Speakers who lives in Ireland, I stayed with her, and she knew Frank too. And I looked at my schedule and I just went, yeah, I've got time to go to Germany. And there, it was wonderful to discover, you know, Frank City, Hamburg, but also because of a video that I did with Frank in Singapore. Michael from the US contacted me on LinkedIn and just went, whoa, that's amazing. You're talking about talking to strangers, and what a concept. And so he connected and he said, are you going to go to Frank's? Are you going to Germany? Because if you are, I'd love to meet you with my wife and 19-year-old son. And of course, he had me at 19-year-old son because I have one too, and they're just lovely. So I went there and met up with Michael in Dresden, discovered Dresden. He bought a gift for me, but he also bought one. Thank you, Joe. He bought a ticket for me for this Bach concert in this completely restored cathedral that had been bombed, and it was extraordinary. But he bought a ticket for me and a stranger. And I said, you wanting to put me to the test? Like, you want to see how I talk to strangers? And he said, oh, I just thought maybe I should buy you one because you might meet someone in the street that you want to bring. So I was like, okay. So I've got half an hour. And I did meet somebody, and she sat enraptured throughout the whole concert, and she was so appreciative. So some of these little moments can be more meaningful than we ever realize. So I said to Michael, you make a bigger difference than you know, just by connecting, you know, in that way. Just another €12 to spend on a stranger. It was quite beautiful. So I think you'll find me talking more about kindness in the coming year. There's a few ideas that I'm brewing, but I want to be, you know, and I love your feedback on this. I used to run teleconferences, which is what Jude was part of. It was just a phone. And now we have computers and we can see each other. But I want to run more online conversations and mentoring. So Lyndon's been helping me with a client at the moment to publish a book, and we just really want to help people win, and it's about connecting with yourself and connecting with others. So, you know, that's something that's emerging for next year, but, you know, I didn't want to talk about next year yet tonight. I want to be celebrating the gold in the year, and I can see Karen also commented that they were treated like family to experience Indian food for the first time. So that would be her Delhi trip, which was so lovely. Oh, and that's so lovely, Sushil. Thank you for your offer to support us in our travel plans to India. It's so generous. And Sushil, because you had said that to me, that's why I connected you with Tim on his flying visit this time. Because, you know, sometimes we might offer kindness to the world and it might not be where we think it's going to end up, but somewhere else, and it's beautiful. So thank you. Who else do we have? Does anyone else want to pop in and say hi? I know that Karen. Oh, Karen Lee.
Yeah, hi.
How
Hi,
are
Karen.
you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Didn't want to put you on the spot because I thought you could be anywhere.
Out in the smoke by the looks of it.
Yeah, I'm in my backyard.
Oh, wow.
But yes, what I wanted to say was that I'm looking forward to playing with the gold concepts, because I do an annual goal plan for myself, and so I like to look back before I start planning the next year. So this gives me a nice framework to work with, which is going to be fun.
Yeah.
But I also thought I'd say that, you know, my gold highlight for this year, of course, would have to be Sisuda, the Traveling Hearts.
Yeah.
Because that was just such an amazing event that came together. And, it, you know, while I was driving it, there were so many people involved.
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of the O and others, that certainly was key for that event. The generosity of others made it come together. And so that's just huge for me. The whole goal, it is my gold moment of the year, is that event.
Beautiful.
And there's, you know, there's pearls in all the letters for that event. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with that at home. You've given me some good things to think about. So yeah, thank you for that. And thank you, of course, for your fabulous involvement in the event itself. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And, you know, I was thinking about you today, Karen Lee. So it's awesome that you jumped on the call.
Yeah, a bit late, but I got there.
Yeah,
I saw the email this morning and I'm like, yes, I have to check my diary. Can I do this? Because I have something else on. But yeah, snuck it in.
It's great, because probably half an hour earlier I made a list of everyone who'd registered, and so when I saw you pop in I was like, oh cool, I didn't know you were coming. So it's really interesting because, you know, we sat down and talked about it, and I think when anyone brings you a new idea, you just kind of go, oh, okay, great. But because you've got so much going on and you don't have the full vision for it, you just kind of go along and you play your part. And, you know, and I hope that I did that sufficiently.
Oh, God, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and because of feedback, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I've had really good feedback from about your component and just how the whole event has hung with people, and they've picked things up and they're still running with it now.
Great.
Like, we've made a change in people's lives. So it's just incredible. So it's, as you say, you know, the things that you do, the kindness that you give someone can rub off in a bigger way than you realize. And that's certainly been the case with that event. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I was thinking about this, Karen, earlier today, because I was introduced to somebody just super quickly at the end of an Asian professional speakers event. And the lady who introduced me said, Kathy's great at interviewing, she'll do this. Kerry's good at interviewing. You know, you guys need to connect. And I was like, okay. So then I find myself doing an interview. Then I find myself doing another interview next time I was back with judges for this event. And Lyndon's really excited about the event, and it's next year at Marina Bay Sands. And I thought today, so much has been going on that, you know, I've given them my time and focus when I've been with them, but I haven't had a lot of time to research or to follow all of the work that they're doing, because, you know, there's so many people in my world doing really extraordinary things. But I realised I'm going to get there in March and I'll be completely blown away. Whereas I think Lyndon, he's already seeing all of that. And I'm just like, oh, this is great. Someone's doing great work. She's cheering on the authors, the writers of the world who are wanting to, you know, just bring truth to the world through their writing, whether it's like books or short stories. And yeah, sometimes I feel like we don't have time to really sink into the significance of something, or we just don't know the significance of it when we just say yes. And it was the like helping that man across the road, I don't know the significance of that, but it was just one moment that I, you know, gave my focus and attention to, and it possibly saved his life that day. It was pretty traffic. So yeah, we just need to remember those moments. So Karen, I just put you on mute because you're coughing. So just come back on if you do. It's so bad. The air is so bad out here, guys. Last night, Lyndon and I were out walking and we're looking at these beautiful starry skies, and all of a sudden the sky just came over like, well, orange. It was kind of, really unusual. And then we're breathing smoke all of a sudden. So it was pretty scary. So it's like, Karen, did you want to say anything else? Karen, I just unmuted you because you were coughing. But was there something else you wanted to say?
No, not really. And yes, the smoke is here and I'm dying.
Yeah. Oh, get inside and take care of that voice.
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't seen, it's pretty wild smoke and dust across a lot of Australia. So who else would like to share?
Yes, I have a great connecting story as well. So I was in London working in a shop called The Old Cinema, which is actually nothing to do with the cinema anymore. They sell antiques and vintage furniture. But this kind of family came in, the lady with her husband and her child. And it's very hard to walk around. It's got 3 different levels and it's definitely not pram friendly. And I was like, oh, don't worry, just leave your pram there, I'll look after it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, brilliant, thank you. She goes, I've got a lot of things to see. I'm going to come back and get you. And I'm like, okay, fine. So she walked around for quite some time and I was like, oh, maybe she'll come back, maybe she won't, whatever. Anyway, she comes back and gets me, and her husband takes the child outside because she was a baby and screaming and stuff. Yeah. She's like, right, I want to get a lot of stuff. So we walked around the 3 levels of the shop. She ended up spending £5,500. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. Anyway, we got chatting as she was walking around, and she worked in films and all this other stuff. And I had no clue, but apparently she's a famous actress. My colleague told me after she left. But I just got chatting to her, and, you know, I'm very passionate about interiors and design. And she said, like, when we were walking around, that they'd just renovated their home in Richmond, and that's why she was buying the furniture and all this other stuff. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, do you need like curtains and blinds? And she's like, oh my gosh, actually I do. And I said, well, that's what I do. Like, would you like any help? And she's like, yes, give your number to my husband. She goes, I hate that kind of thing. But she said, I don't want to pay an interior designer to do it because they charge a fortune. And I said, well, I'm just starting out. I'm happy to help. So I went to her house and the first meeting, and we just connected like that. And it was so weird. Like we just like would even say the same thing at the same time. And it transpires our birthdays were quite close as well. So we had that connection.
Oh,
and
lovely.
It was just amazing, like just from talking to someone and asking questions and finding out a bit about them. Then I could go and help her and obviously get paid for the job. And that's what kind of helped me. Originally, I was coming back to Australia just for a holiday at Christmas, but now I'm kind of back for a while. But like doing that job kind of helped me get to where I am now. So it was just brilliant.
That's so beautiful. And it's just those moments, isn't it, where you just, tune in and people feel like, yeah, she's sincere in her wanting to help me, and just making it easier. And that's so lovely. Especially, it sounds like, she's quite busy, so she's going to make a split second decision. And it's often about because of that sense of connection. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Definitely.
The possibilities are endless. And I love that Sushil said, he never talks to strangers because the moment he talks to them, they become friends. They're no longer strangers. And it's beautiful when you get that sense. And I know that the lady that you connected with, Jude, would have felt the same as well. We really are not strangers for more than a moment, but I use that language because people hold people at a distance. But we can also find that somebody sitting on the end of our lounge is a stranger, and we have allowed distance to come between us. And so connecting is important. Like when I say do talk to strangers, I'm like, and neighbours and friends and family, like it's taking time to connect and listen. When I reviewed last year, I was looking at a blog or something that I'd written about this kind of process. While the gold process is brand new, and you guys are the first ones to hear it. When I reviewed last year, there was a bit of travel in the beginning of the year, and then it was spending the last 6 months at home, really supporting Ethan to get through year 12. And, today I saw that the Australian students are getting their marks. And so it was at this time last year that there was still so much uncertainty. And so Ethan's been out there connecting with so many others. And
it's
beautiful.
Been a progression of moving from one uncertainty to another.
Yes.
The whole year, really.
A lot of the unknown.
All three of us, really.
Yeah, we've really been stepping into the unknown. But so while we kind of know what we want to do and where we're going, there's still so much unknown. And it's just, I think when we review our year like this, when we see the gold, it gives us confidence for the unknown. Because, so for those of you who are looking at, 2020 being a year of unknown, it can be such a beautiful adventure. So
uncertainty.
That's been a key phrase for us, hasn't it, Dal?
That was my focus for the year, was embracing uncertainty.
Yes. So one huge unknown this year has been our online world. It's been quite challenging. Amazon, and can I just say, Lyndon is my absolute hero today, because actually last night, but I was sharing his birthday last night on Instagram, but I need to go and share how he has been an absolute hero in the last 24 hours, because I now have an Amazon author page. Who knew it was a thing? Maybe you all did, but my Amazon world has been quite complicated. There were some errors in it, and he's been chasing them up over and over. Quite a few glitches, and so some countries weren't getting the books. And anyway, so that was sorted. My website crashed, and online life has been a bit of a challenge. And I've gone, you know what? I just want to be present with people, and I think I kind of got into that habit last year, just taking so much more time to be present with Ethan and his, final year of school and all of the Air Force exams and everything. But next year I want to, be more integrated in not just connecting well with people offline, but also online. So any questions, comments, feedback is most welcome. But we might wrap up there, and let's continue the conversation online, on the blog or on Facebook or LinkedIn. Share your gold, and I hope that that's a really useful tool for you in wrapping up the year.